Christian Mingle is an okay film, but it's not the film that I was expecting. This was originally released in 2014, and in at least two places on the internet, namely Amazon Prime, where I watched it, and IMDb, it's called Christmas Mingle. So I thought I was going to be watching a Christmas film. Not only is it not a Christmas film, but at one point, quite early on, one of the characters says Happy New Year to somebody. So it's very obviously set after Christmas. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if maybe one source mistyped it and then it just kind of, spread to other locations. But the point being there is if you think you're watching a Christmas film, you're not. It is very much a Christian film, and that is something that is worth bearing in mind, as I know not everybody likes that kind of film. I have to say that aspect of it worked well for me. I'm spiritual, I am kind of Christian, so that aspect did appeal to me. However, I feel like the film was suggesting something that I deeply do not agree with. And I'll discuss what I mean by that with a spoiler warning, and it did kind of slightly hinder my enjoyment, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm misreading it. I don't know if that's just how I'm interpreting it, but it's not what the film is trying to say. But I will, towards the end, with a spoiler warning, discuss what I mean by that. So the film is written and directed by Corbin Bernsen, and one of the reasons, the main reason why I decided to keep watching it, even though I was actually in the mood for a Christmas film, I love Lacey Chabert, and she plays our protagonist Gwyneth. So I thought, okay, it's not the Christmas film I was looking for, but I love her, so I'll stick with it. And it was worth it. It was a pretty decent film. But at the same time, I don't, as I said, love certain things that I'm reading into it. But she hasn't had much luck with love, so she decides to sign up to a Christian dating site. This is despite the fact that she's not a practicing Christian. We find out that, she went to church as a child. I think she said she was baptized, but she's not a practicing Christian. However, she meets somebody and they hit it off and things go really well. And this is a character called Paul Wood, played by Jonathan Patrick Moore. Honestly, I did not like Paul. I was going to say at all, but actually, to begin with, I didn't mind him. Nothing wrong with the acting, I think perfect casting across the board, but the character started off quite likable, but as the narrative went on, I just didn't really care for him. And to be honest, I don't think there was a strong spark between Gwyneth and Paul. It's not that there was no romance between them, but I wasn't feeling it. So there were things that I didn't like about this. Basically, the only aspect that I did like was Gwyneth as a character. I liked the journey that she went on. I liked the effort that she put in to try to improve her Christianity for Paul's sake. And I was also curious. I was very curious to find out what would happen if and when Paul found out the truth. So that kept me engaged. The actual events of the film, there aren't that many. There's some relief work, which is quite nice and quite motivating and quite inspirational to see. So there are definitely some positive takeaways from this, but there are also some things, mainly one thing that I didn't really love. Honestly, it's not a bad film. It's a very easy watch. I think as long as you have Christian faith or are contemplating Christian faith, I think you might get something out of it. And also, if you love Lacey Chabert, I think you'll enjoy that part of it. But the one thing that I didn't like, so spoilers from now, the only thing I'm going to discuss is a message that I think the film is giving. But I don't know if it is, and I want to make that clear. I don't know if this is the message the film is intending to give, or if it's just my reading of it. I'd love to know if you read something similar, if you disagree with me. I'm not fully decided whether it's what I'm reading or if it's what the film is meaning to say. But the message that I get is that there's only one kind of Christian, and that is somebody who can quote the Bible, somebody who knows the Bible inside out, somebody who does everything a proper Christian, and I put that in quotes, is meant to do, such as saying grace, going to church at a certain time. That is the message I think the film is giving. And there are times when actually it's almost like Gwyneth is being told you're not a good enough Christian, or even you're not a Christian because you don't have all of these practices. And I think that's a very poisonous mindset, because if somebody is just starting out with their journey with Christianity, that doesn't mean they're a less worthy Christian. It might mean they're less knowledgeable, but it doesn't mean they're not a proper Christian. It just means they're not as far along their journey as somebody else. And I feel like this film was really saying, if you want to call yourself a Christian, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to be able to quote this passage from the Bible or know what this means and interpret this passage in a certain way and know how to say grace. And I think that's very damaging, very poisonous, very disrespectful. There is no one type of Christian. Christians do things in different ways. Yes, there are common Christian practices, and yes, a lot of Christians will say grace or go to church on a Sunday or even more frequently. But just because you can't memorize every passage in the Bible, just because you don't know how to say grace perfectly, it doesn't mean you don't love Jesus in your heart. Being a Christian is about worshipping the Lord, absolutely, and following the teachings of Jesus, but it's about what you do with that information, how you act as a person, how you treat other people. It's not about memorizing passages. Absolutely, if that's the kind of Christian you want to be, brilliant. As long as you don't make other people feel lesser as a result of that. And I honestly feel like the film was saying to be a good Christian, which Gwyneth isn't, you need to be able to do all of these things, otherwise you're not worthy. And that's disgusting. So I really hope that that's not what the film was suggesting, but at the same time, if that's my reading of it, it's possible that other people are also reading that as well. And I hope that that's not the case, because Christianity is all about goodness and kindness and following the positive teachings of the Lord, not memorizing passages. My memory is terrible. I might believe in the words of the Bible, I might think they're great for guiding us through life, but I can't remember anything. Does that make me less worthy of loving the Lord? I'd like to think it doesn't. So I'm not in 100% agreement with everything that this film says, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and just say that it did a bad job of delivering that message, or I guess helping to show that that's not the message they were trying to portray. So that did upset me a little bit. But that aside, it was a fairly enjoyable film. I'm still very confused as to why multiple places refer to it as Christmas Mingle, but if you can overlook that fact and you're in the mood for a faith-based film and you love Lacey Chabert, then Christian Mingle might be okay.